All right, welcome everyone to our meeting for LPCA Executive Committee meeting for Monday, April 15th, 2024, 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I will call the meeting to order at 7:11. Oh, that's nice. 7:11. Oh, right before 7:12. That worked out really well. All right, so I called the meeting to order officially at 7:11. Will the secretary please call the roll when he is ready?
Right. Mr. Malagon.
Present.
Mr. Alvstad.
Present.
Mr. Edgar is present. Ms. Hallisey. Not here yet. Okay. Mr. Butts. Ms. Stump.
Present.
And Mr. Dean.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
I'm here.
Mr. Byrd.
Here.
Mr. Hardwig.
Present.
Mr. Jimenez. No. Mr. Nichols.
Here.
Mr. Strachan. I know he's here. I think he might be muted.
Present.
There we go. Mr. Sullivan.
Present.
Mr. Cardin.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Apostolopoulos. No. Okay, that completes the roll, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I did get the note in the chat. Ms. Robson's going to convention. Fantastic. Just mark that. And we will be seating Mr. Cardin for the vacancy left by Mr. Alvarez. All right. So the chat's funny. I got to check it more often. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. Everyone saw the revised version. I believe I sent it out earlier today or last night. I don't remember. It's all kind of blending in now. But I would now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as submitted.
I move to adopt.
All right. Mr. Nichols moves to adopt. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Mr. Cardin. Are there any objections to the adoption of the, is there any discussion? Any objections to the adoption of the agenda? Excellent. The agenda is adopted. We will move on to public comments. So 2 minutes for a total of 10 minutes per person. Mr. Greg Tucker is here. I believe he has thrown his hat in the ring for a couple of committees, and I did invite him to come and speak on his possible appointments. So Mr. Tucker, anyone that wants to raise their hand is welcome to do so, of course, but I do know that Mr. Tucker is here probably wanting to speak on that. So if you would like to, please feel free.
Thank you. My name is Greg Tucker. I live in Marietta, California. I'm a private investigator. I hold 3 master's degrees, and I've been a libertarian for about 20 years now. And I have a full belief in the party's commitment to being an individual. I believe that my background, I did go to law school, along with being a forensic behavioral science. I believe that my skill level will help me contribute to the party's agenda. And I'm very interested primarily in the legislative committee, but also I've put my hat in for the bylaws and the strategic planning committee. And I'm very excited on the aspect of being a part of the group and learn from you and the different things that the Libertarian Party is about.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Up next, we have Ms. Robson.
Good evening, everybody. So good to see you all. So I have 3 things that I wanted to talk about. First is the committees. I did, in fact, apply for 2 different committees. I saw that one of them, which I'm not quite understanding, is not on the agenda, which is Financial Standards Committee. But I also applied for the Bylaws Committee. I sent all of you all an email kind of giving my reasons for wanting to be on that committee, so I don't need to say that again right now. Next is delegates for National Convention. Two things. One, I saw that you only have one person on the agenda for that, and I know of two people that have actually asked to be added. One of them is Nick Nuno, who sent an email on March 4th, and the other is Marcos Matthews, who has a podcast that I've been on a couple times. And he said he sent an email previous, but he was going to send another one tonight. Hopefully he did that. And also, I just wanted to mention that I noticed that none of our delegation has been given to the Credentials Committee. All we need is one person to be on there to make sure that we do the stuff. So I just want to make sure that happens. And third, but not least, the Libertarian Party of Los Angeles County is doing a Second Amendment event in Rosamond on April 28th. At that event will be two of our presidential candidates, Lars Mapsteed and Chase Oliver. And in addition, Chase Oliver campaign is having an event in Orange County at Bruheim on April 27th. So I just thought that I'd make those announcements because I think both of those are going to be really great events and a lot of people are going to be there. So that was everything I have. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Robson. Is there any other public comment? All right, hearing none, we will move on the agenda. Going once, going twice. Okay, before we move on, I'm just going to address one quick thing for the record here. So the delegate list is not does not have to be submitted until April 24th. That will be submitted by then. I'm going through and just confirming a few people before submitting a final list to kind of make it a little bit easier on them and not have to amend the list several times over. There are 3 people that have requested to be delegates, and that's Marcus Matthews, Desmond Mantle, and Matthew Butts. We're holding off on Mr. Matthews and Mr. Mantle because we have to check them and make sure that everything is copacetic. But Mr. Butts is an easy one given that he's the Central Area Coordinator. So, all right. Moving on, we are at elections. So elections for the 2024 LPCA committees. So the way that we're going to do this, it's going to be a maximum of 5 minutes each for each committee. We have the XCOM has received a list of all of the people who have applied. That is not to say that those are the only people that will be allowed. So I would recommend that I will name these off as we go through, and we're going to do these one at a time. So it looks like for most of these, we're going to be under the threshold of the vacancies. So unless there's an objection, we should be able to do most of, if not all of these as a slate, unless there are people that are added on. In the event that people are added on, so for instance, I'll just give an example. If for the first, actually we're going to skip affiliate support because there isn't, unless someone, I guess we can go through the list and do that. But for instance, if for affiliate support, there are 4 vacancies, not counting the area coordinators. If 6 people are rattled off right now, then what we would do is we would go into a semi-secret ballot. So you can email the secretary your preferences, and we can go that route since we're not in person to be able to do it by paper, and then we'll do the tally at the end there, if that makes sense. Are there any questions before? And again, I saw some questions in the chat, and we just let a guest join us, Jesse Thomas, just for the secretary's records there. So what we'll do is, if you have someone that you know of that has expressed interest and willing to serve for a committee, you're welcome to nominate them, or you can nominate yourself too, or you can nominate fellow XCOM members, but we'll open nominations and close nominations for each of the elections. So I did take some off because there wasn't anyone that had applied there. For the Financial Standards Committee, the vice chair, given that he decides how many people he needs, he's still trying to sort that out. So he requested that it be kind of put on the back burner for right now, which is fine. So we can take care of that on May 20th. As a reminder, there are no email ballots anymore. So for you new members, just so that you're aware, there are no email ballots. So any official appointments that aren't done today can be done later on. They can be done in May. They can be done, June, July, whatever. But that doesn't mean that someone that isn't interested in a particular committee, with the approval of that committee, can hop in and kind of get their feet wet and understand how it works before, officially deciding that they want to be appointed to that committee. If that makes sense. Are there any questions before we get going?
I have a question.
Mr. Dean?
I believe we have skipped the adoption of the minutes. We jumped over that in the agenda.
We did do that. So we haven't started the elections yet. Good catch. Awesome. Sorry, it was cut off here. Thank you very much. For future reference, that would be a point of order. Anyway.
So I got this point of order.
All right. So, well, we're finished public comment. We talked about the elections, so that's fine. Didn't actually move there. So, Mr. Dean, would you care to do the honors?
I move that we adopt the minutes from the previous meeting.
All right. So, motion has been made to approve the March 28th, 2024 Executive Committee meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Stump. Is there any discussion? Any objections to adopting the meeting minutes? Hearing none, they are approved, sorry. All right, now we're at elections. So see, this is what happens when I'm not drinking. Everything gets thrown out of whack. It's not good. All right, so Affiliate Support Committee, we'll go ahead and open nominations for that. There are 4 vacancies for the Affiliate Support Committee. The current 3 members on the committee are the Northern Area Coordinator, the Central Area Coordinator, and the Southern Area Coordinator. Are there any nominations for affiliate support? Mr. Hartwig.
I would like to nominate Ms. Rachel Wiley Gonzalez.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Going once, going twice. All right. Nominations are now closed. Is there any objection? Well, would anyone like to speak on her nomination?
I guess I can speak, yeah, since I nominated her.
You're welcome to. You don't have to, but you can. I think we're all familiar with her, but in case someone isn't.
Rachel started coming a couple of years ago to our county meetings. She's now our county treasurer. I think, you know, what she said basically is we need people who will do work, and she's willing to do work. So, and she's interested in the Affiliate Support Committee.
Fantastic. All right. Is there any objection? We only have 1 for 4 vacancies, so this would leave 3 vacancies to be filled at a later time. Are there any objections to the appointment of Ms. Rachel Wiley Gonzalez for Affiliate Support Committee? All right, hearing none, she is appointed. Fantastic. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, on this part of the agenda, is Budget Committee. So 4 vacancies for Budget Committee. We have the treasurer, who's an automatic, who's the just an automatic appointed member per the OPM, and then we have I've thrown my hat in the ring for that so far, and I think Mr. Sullivan, but we'll go ahead and open nominations now.
I nominate Kirk Sullivan to join the Budget Committee.
All right, so Mr. Dean nominates Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, do you accept your nomination?
I do.
Excellent. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Adrian, the chair.
All right, fantastic. Mr. Brown nominates the chair for Budget Committee. Are there any other nominations? Going once, going twice. All right, nominations are closed. Mr. Sullivan, since you're here, would you care to speak to your nomination?
I would. Hello, everybody. I'm a bookkeeper by trade, and thus I deal a lot in budgeting and financial reporting. They both kind of end up going hand in hand. So I have a lot of experience in this. I've been doing this for about 3 years now, going on 3.5. So however you want to shake that out. I believe I can do a lot of good work on budget. I believe I can provide valuable insight on cash flows and projections and those kinds of economic modeling. And I just believe I'd be a good fit for the role. So I appreciate your consideration, and that will be all.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I will speak to my nomination as well. So for those of you that don't know me, hi, my name is Adrian F. Malaga. So I think that it is important for the chair to be part of the Budget Committee since, you know, seeing what's coming in, what's going out, that whole bit. We had a nice little influx from convention, which we'll go over later, $26,000 in net profit, over $26,000 in net profit, which is good. I was able to slash a lot of the budget last year, save us over $8,000 in expenses, which is good. And I'd really just like to make sure that we keep that trend going, cutting expenditures that are unnecessary, making sure that our spending is down to a cost, and then also figuring out where we can bring in revenue and maybe adjust some things in the line items as necessary. So that's why I would like to be on the budget committee. Now, since there are 2 spots for 4 vacancies, leaving 2 open for a future meeting, I'm going to move that this be adopted as a slate. So that would be Mr. Sullivan and myself to fill 2 of the 4 vacancies. Is there a second for that?
I second.
Seconded by Mr. Nichols. Is there any discussion? Any objection to adopting the slate? Hearing none, Mr. Sullivan and myself are appointed to Budget Committee, leaving 2 vacancies. Congratulations, Mr. Sullivan, and me. All right. Next committee is Bylaws Committee. So we have 4 people who have expressed interest. XCOM members know who they are. They have the list. That being said, I will now open nominations for Bylaws Committee. All right, I'll do it. I will nominate, I'll kick it off by nominating the vice chair, Mr. Gary Alstead.
I'll nominate Trendlin Halsey.
Okay, the secretary nominates Ms. Halsey. Are there any other nominations?
I'll nominate Greg Tucker. Go Riverside County.
There you go. All right, Mr. Tucker has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for bylaws? Going once, going twice. All right, nominations are closed. So that is 3 spots for 5 vacancies. That will leave 2 for a future meeting. So we have the vice chair here. Would you like to speak to your nomination? Assuming that your connection is okay now.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. I've been on the committee for a couple years now. I chaired it last year. We had a really good proposal. We got a lot of feedback from the convention. I think we know now what we're up against, and I think we'll be able to sell it better at the next convention. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Ms. Halsey is not here. I'll say a little something about Ms. Halsey. So she did reach out. She wanted to be on bylaws again. She thought it went very well last year. I'm inclined to agree, working with Mr. Starr, and I'm very happy with what the bylaws committee put forward. Not everything passes, we all know, unfortunately, but hopefully a future year, hopefully this coming year, some of that stuff. But yeah, I would like to, I'd like to see her on there again doing some more good work. Mr. Tucker, since you're here, you've already spoken to your nomination, but you're welcome to do so again if you'd like. You are muted, sir, just so you're aware.
Sorry about that.
No,
yeah, I think I said what I wanted to say. I am very analytical, and I think I do like to read legal work, so I believe this would be a good fit for me, and I thank you for the nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Bylaws are very tedious, so if you're into that sort of thing, Godspeed.
Yeah, love
All
it.
right. That makes one of us. All right, so we have, again, 3 nominations for 5 spots. That will leave 2 open for a future meeting. I will go ahead and move to adopt the 3 that we have named. So Mr. Gary Alstead, Ms. Trendlin Halsey, and Mr. Gregory Tucker as a slate. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Is there any objection to adopting the slate of the 3 aforementioned people? Hearing none, congratulations, everybody. The vice chair, the treasurer, and Mr. Tucker. Welcome to bylaws. All right. Moving on to the next committee, candidate support committee. So we have 5 vacancies for this. As a reminder, the chair, me, automatically is on the committee and chair of that committee. The treasurer is appointed by the chair, and that will be named at a later date, though you all probably suspect, you know, who it is, given that they already did it, but we haven't spoken yet, so I don't want to put that individual on the spot as of this time, but they will be appointed by the chair. We do have 4 candidates applying for 5 spots. So right now, well, I guess I'll just open nominations, and you all know who those people are, and we'll move forward from there. Ms. Stump.
Yes, John Ferrero expressed an interest to be on the candidate support committee, and he said he emailed his request for candidacy consideration in. So I don't know if he sent it to the correct email list, but he did express a strong desire to be on candidate support again.
I'm very apprehensive about this since he couldn't even email the right email address, but I'll allow it. Okay, so I
Vic
know.
also emailed, but it didn't wind up going to the right email either, supposedly. So he's not the only one. So
That's odd. All right. Well, all right. So Mr. John Ferrero has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for candidate support?
I totally nominate Kelly Card.
All right. Mr. D nominates Mr. Cardin. Mr. Cardin, do you accept? You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Yeah, I accept.
Okay. All right. I will carry on nominations by nominating Mr. Hartwig. Mr. Hartwig, do you accept?
I accept.
All right. Are there any other nominations for candidate support?
I'm sorry,
nominate
Mr. Chair, who nominated Mr. Hartwig?
That was me.
Okay.
And then I'll nominate Mr. Nichols.
All right. So Mr. Brown nominates Mr. Tom Nichols, and then Ms. Stump.
I will not nominate Mr. Strachan.
All right. Ms. Stump nominates Mr. Strachan. Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right. Nominations are now closed. We will, just to get things rolling here, I'm going to go ahead and move that the 5 nominees, so that's Mr. John Ferrero, Mr. Kelly Cardin, Mr. Matthew Hartwig, Mr. Tom Nichols, and Mr. Craig Strachan, are all nominated as a slate. 5 people for 5 vacancies. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? All right, hearing none. All 5 aforementioned members are now on the candidate support committee. Congratulations, gentlemen. I guess I should have asked. It's kind of like late now, but we'll do it anyway, just for the sake of doing it. Man, I'm really off my game when I'm not drinking. Mr. Nichols, I assume that you accept your nomination.
I accept.
And Mr. Strachan?
So I do.
I guess you don't have a choice anymore. You're already appointed. That would be very poor form. See, that's how I did it on purpose, actually, just so that now you can't back out. It just looks bad on your part. I'm playing 4D chess. I learned from a great former president. All right. Moving on to the next committee. Oh, that was funny, Mr. Sullivan. Don't even. All right. Moving on to legislative. I see you're disapproving the head nod. I thought it was funny. All right. Moving on to legislative committee. So, oh wait, no, sorry. Communications and Media Committee, so the CMC. So there are 7 vacancies, and we have 3 applicants, but we'll go ahead and open nominations. Never know what's going to happen here. Ms. Stump.
I nominate Mr. Victor Srivastava. He's been vice chair for the past year, and he's done an excellent job.
Excellent. So Ms. Stump nominates Mr. Victor Srivastava. Did I say that right? Srivastava? I did say that right. Any other nominations? Mr. Brown.
I'll nominate Ms. Stump.
All right, Mr. Brown nominates Ms. Stump. Any other nominations? I will nominate Mr. Tim Hopkins. I'm not familiar with him. I wish he would have. He did send a pretty extensive email as to why he wanted to do it. He seemed very excited to do it. So I look forward to seeing what we can do. Are there any other nominations? We have 3 so far for 7 spots. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask Ms. Stump if any of the other former members of the CMC expressed any interest in joining the committee again.
I did email out to the CMC team and did send a reminder via chat to apply. So, none other than Mr. Srivastava, no other repeats for the CMC other than him and me. So far.
No worries. So what we'll do then is, it's going to be up to the chair of that committee, but obviously if any of them come afterward and want to be a part of stuff before they're officially appointed, that's also fine. But any other nominations before we close them?
I do accept my nomination.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm assuming that Mr. Srivastava accepts his. We'll assume that Mr. Hopkins accepts his since he asked. We'll go ahead and close nominations now. I will move to adopt the 3 mentioned, so Mr. Tim Hopkins, Mr. Victor Srivastava, and Ms. Elizabeth Stump as a slate to fill, so 3 to fill 7, so at least 4 vacancies for a future meeting. Are there any or is there a second? Sorry.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Is there any objection to adopting the 3 aforementioned members as a slate? Hearing none, congratulations, new CMC. And just as a quick reminder, I did get asked this over email, I think by somebody, I don't remember who, but so I was over text, I'm sorry. So a lot of people were still debating whether they had the time to be on some of these committees. And for those of you that don't remember, that weren't on the executive committee last year, there were some massive changes done to the OPM. One of those changes was extending the spots for a lot of these committees to allow more people to join and be a part of the process. People always drop off, life happens, and it's always nice to make sure that we have enough people running a committee when something like that happens. So that's why we have more vacancies throughout the year periodically than we normally would, because we extended a lot of these and made some changes as to, so they now include members that would have just applied beforehand, and to allow more lay people, so to speak, to be part of these committees. So you see that with ASC, you see that with membership, you see that with CSC, for instance. All right, moving on to the next committee, that's legislative committee. So we have 7 vacancies for this, and we have 4 applicants that we know of at this time. Nominations are now open for legislative committee.
I'd like to nominate Brian Gonzalez. He's from Kern County. I just texted him, and he's interested in serving.
All right, so Mr. Cardin nominates Brian Gonzalez
for a couple months, so he's kind of prepped on it.
No, that's fantastic. I'm familiar with Mr. Gonzalez, and I'm glad that he's wanting to be on a committee. All right, so Mr. Brian Gonzalez is the first nominee. Are there any other nominations?
I will nominate Craig Strachan so that he can redeem his homeland from that vile hate speech law they just passed.
All right, Mr. D nominates Mr. Strachan. Mr. Strachan, do you accept your nomination to go against the homeland, or I guess the atrocities happening in the homeland?
I do, but I'm afraid I'll have to be directing my efforts towards Sacramento, which is bad enough.
Fair enough. All right, so Mr. Strachan, are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Francisco Alanis from here in Fresno County, solid dude. And he wants to pitch in effort.
Fantastic. So Mr. Nichols nominates Mr. Francisco Alanis. Are there any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Dr. Mary Beth Yuskavage.
All right. So Mr. Hartwig nominates Dr. Mary Beth Yuskavage. Is it Yuskavage? It's Yuskavage, right? Did you just add other letters?
Once.
Oh, Yuskavage. I always get that one wrong. Okay, I'm going to take your word for it. All right. I'm going to assume that she accepts and she went ahead and applied. And I will nominate Mr. Gregory Tucker. I think having someone with a legal background who would do something like that to himself and be part of bylaws committee is a good person to have on legislative. If you can, if libertarians spent more time arguing against the state and less time arguing amongst each other, I think we would be in pretty decent shape. So it seems like Mr. Tucker wants to do that, so I will happily nominate him. Mr. Tucker, I assume you accept your nomination?
Yes, I accept. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. So, excuse me, sorry, I just got a message. Okay. So would anyone like to speak on their, we'll just go through the formalities before we'll close nominations, since I'm assuming that there are no others. So we have 5 people for 7 vacancies. So that'll leave 2 for the next meeting. Would anyone like to speak on their nomination, whether you nominated someone or whether you were the one nominated? All right, so we'll go ahead and move to a vote. I will move to, well, before the vote, I will move to adopt the 5 aforementioned people as a slate for the 7 vacancies. So that's 5 people for 7 spots. 2 will be left open. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion? Any objections? All right. Condolences, 5 legislative committee members. This was a new one I was happy to bring back out and wipe the dust off of. That was something that didn't get a chance to do a whole lot last year. The people, we had 3 lawyers on it, I think, last year, and they were all swamped with cases and all this other stuff. So this will be nice to get back off the ground, especially now that it seems that our liberties are eroding by the day here in California, and with our pending lawsuits, which are pretty good. All right, moving on to the next committee, program committee. So we have 5 vacancies for program committee, and we have 2 known nominees, or applicants rather, sorry. I will now open nominations for program committee.
I will nominate Mr. Lauren Dean.
All right.
Neighboring county.
Mr. Sullivan nominates Mr. Dean. Mr. Dean, do you accept?
I do. I eat love.
Why? Ms. Stump.
I nominate Mr. Sean Osborne.
All right. Ms. Stump nominates Mr. Osborne. Are there any other nominations? Going once, going twice. This one was surprising that more people didn't. I think what happens with program committee is that people forget that this can change every year. The program committee was very happy with their stuff last year. So I'm surprised they didn't want to come back and fight to keep some of it, depending on what you guys decide to do and what's passed and that whole bit. So in any case, all right, nominations are now closed. We have 2 people for 5 spots. I will go ahead and move that Mr. Lauren Dean and Mr. Sean Osborne are appointed to the program committee as a slate. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Stump. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to adopting them as a slate? All right, hearing none. Congratulations, program committee. Don't mess it up. Last program committee did a good job, so a lot of pressure. All right. 3 to go, people. 3 to go. Bear with me here. So we have we have the recruitment committee. I think Mr. Kula never got back to me. I'll have to find out if he officially wants to do it or not. We'll find out. But so we're at recruitment committee. There's 6 vacancies for that. That was a newly formed committee last year that I wanted to put in the OPM to make sure that we did something about our membership numbers. Membership and recruitment, again, of course, are 2 different things. So contacting previous members or current members and getting them to get more involved is different than recruiting brand new people. So that's why this committee was formed. As a reminder, I will now, and the chair, so me, I am automatically on the recruitment committee. I think that it's important for the chair to be involved in the recruitment of this, especially when we're talking about I am Brown, and being able to reach out to the Brown community should be something that I should be able to do fairly well. And this is what I do for a living. So not reach out to Brown people, but like recruit and stuff. But also like some of them are Brown. Anyway, we have one we have one person who has expressed interest in the recruitment committee. We'll now open up nominations to recruitment. And I will kick this one off and nominate the vice chair, Mr. Gary Alstead, for recruitment committee. Are there any other nominations? Some of you XCOM members that, oh, go ahead, Mr. Hartwig.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Aaron Center.
All right, Mr. Aaron Center has been nominated by Mr. Hartwig, and I assume that he has requested to be on this committee and that he accepts his nomination.
Yes.
And how do you spell center again? Is that
Senter?
Ter? Okay. All right. So Mr. Gary Alstead and Mr. Aaron Center, are there any other nominations? For those of you looking to get your feet wet in some committees, it's not a bad one. I think most everyone's on the committee or has applied for something, but it's not a bad one. You can always join later on. This would be a good one to get some people in. Ms. Stump, if you'd be so kind as to reach out to Mr. Kula at some point in time and see if he's still interested. I know he had a lot of ideas and stuff, and life happened, so he wasn't able to get a lot of them off the ground. So I'm hoping that he still wants to be on this committee. We don't have to do it now. Chris Kula.
Oh, yes. I will reach out to him.
Yeah, if you don't mind reaching out and seeing if he's still interested, we can appoint him. He can still be involved in everything. We'll just, I know he had some ongoing projects, and so it would be good to officially appoint him if he's still interested in getting some of those off the ground. Mr. Brown.
I'll nominate myself for the recruitment committee.
All right, Mr. Brown nominates himself. Very gauche, but we'll allow it. Do you accept your nomination?
I'll get back to
yourself.
I gotta think about it.
All right, so we have 3 members now: Mr. Gary Alstead, Mr. Aaron Center, and Mr. Graham Brown. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are now closed. Oh, I see the LNC business list is having some fun. That'll be fun to check out after this. Okay, so would anyone like to speak on their nominations?
Sure, I'll speak on Mr. Center. So, yeah, Aaron just got involved fairly recently. He actually reached out to Mr. Malagon through the state party about getting involved, started coming to our county meetings in January, and pretty much jumped in right away at his first meeting, volunteered to help with our candidate ranking. I can't remember what we call it now. Yeah, but he's eager to get involved and felt that this committee was most in line with his interests.
Fantastic. Always like to see people getting involved, especially the new ones. If they don't jump into the deep end, we like to push them in anyway. So it kind of worked out that he voluntarily jumped in. All right. Would anyone else like to speak on their nominations? Mr. Brown, did you decide if you accept your nomination yet?
I
you were going to get back to us.
Yeah, I wasn't sure at first, but yeah, and I don't know. I can speak to it. I'm interested in doing some other things. I was on bylaws last time, and I was in a few different committees. This one's I'm interested in more in recruitment, so I'd like to continue to be involved with that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, actually, I want to encourage people to join this committee. I think it's really important. Our membership has gotten really low, while the number of registered libertarians is continuing to increase at the state level. We need to get more aggressive recruiting people, and anybody, if you have marketing, telemarketing, design sort of expertise, we could really use that. And I look forward to being really aggressive, really growing the size of the state party between now and the election. Prime time to take advantage of.
Fantastic. I agree. And having that nice influx from convention will help us with those recruiting efforts. I do think I've written about this extensively in the past. For those of you that haven't seen it, maybe I'll just copy and paste it and put it on the public list. But I do think that recruitment is really important. The way that we go about it is very important. And it's not just the recruitment, but it's keeping members engaged and active that find the party and do stuff. For those of you that aren't aware, every once in a while, I do get random emails from people that come in and find us on the website or Google us or whatever, and they want to have a chat, I always make myself available to talk with these people, assuming that they aren't insane. So when they, I test them out with like an email or two just to make sure that it's not like a spam bot or like someone trying to tell me that if I donate $1 million of party money that we don't have to get their Nigerian girlfriend's brother-in-law's sister out of the country or whatever. I just have to make sure it's none of that. And then, I hop on the phone with them, I give them the pitch, and usually they become members right after that. So obviously that's not so much recruitment when they come to us, but we need to be better about getting out there and doing stuff like that. Sometimes they request iTunes gift cards. It's true. I was told that I did at one point in time. I will say, just on a real, on a funny note, I'm going to throw Mr. Dean under the bus a little bit. Although so for those of you that don't remember, I think a few months ago, an email when our Google was spammed or hacked or whatever, it wasn't hacked, but when people were able to spam and do whatever, an email went out as me requesting iTunes gift cards. And I'm actually very I'm actually very flattered that Mr. Dean was more than willing to click on the link and give me some gift cards. I'm a little disturbed that it was so easy for him to almost fall for that spoof, but I'm very flattered that he was more than willing to send me some iTunes gift cards, and for that I am eternally grateful. So thank you, Mr. Dean. I do appreciate it, and I know who to come to first when I do need when I'm finally ready to pull the trigger on my new MacBook Pro and I need that Apple gift card. You're the first person I'm hitting up. I'm very excited about that. And I do like how someone else said that they knew it wasn't me because it came from Adrian Malagon as opposed to Adrian F. Malagon. They caught that and they're like, this is weird. Why would it come from like where's the middle name? So I thought that was funny. But anyway, all right, congratulations, recruitment committee. And I do hope that some of you take the vice chair up on his offer and get a little bit more involved, especially if you have experience on the phones and all that kind of stuff. I need to talk to the central area coordinator about that once he's back online. All right, moving on to the second to last committee that we have for the evening, Strategic Planning Committee. This is relatively new. This was done within the last couple of years, and it's about coming up with a strategy for the party and in different avenues, right? Not just how we can make ourselves better, but how we can project ourselves a little bit better using marketing, using any tools and resources that we have at our disposal, people, planning, that whole bit. So that this will work very closely with recruitment and also work well with membership. So that's kind of the vision of these three. They're all part of the same vehicle, same machine, just different parts of it, and they need to focus on their respective parts. So we have 5 vacancies and we have 5 members who have expressed interest. So we will now open nominations for Strategic Planning Committee.
I nominate Greg Tucker. Go Riverside County.
All right. Mr. Dean is involved in sort of a local nationalism here. He will nominate Gregory Tucker. Mr.
The
Gregory
South
Tucker
will rise.
The South will rise. Not again. They'll just rise. I always love when anyone makes the secretary smirk just a little bit, and it just makes me happy. It's more when it's me. I feel better when it's me, but if anyone does it, he gets that little like smirk. It makes me happy. Mr. Tucker, do you accept your nomination for Strategic Planning Committee?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. Ms. Stump.
Yes, I nominate our illustrious chair, Mr. Adrian F. Malagon.
Thank you, Ms. Stump. I do accept my nomination, and I am illustrious. Mr. Strachan.
I will nominate Ms. Carrie Eiler.
All right, Mr. Strachan nominates Ms. Eiler. Do we have any other nominations? Going once. I will do it then. All right, so I will nominate Mr. Mike Forbes, who reached out, and Mr. Tim Hopkins. I'm not familiar with them outside of their very extensive emails and their desire to be part of this committee, so hopefully it works out, and always looking forward to see what some new people can bring to the table here. So are there any other nominations? Nominations are now closed. We will move on to, I will just go ahead and make the vote. So I move to appoint all 5 members, Ms. Carrie Eiler, Mr. Mike Forbes, Mr. Tim Hopkins, myself, and Mr. Gregory Tucker for Strategic Planning Committee to fill all 5 vacancies. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to adopting this slate?
I'm sorry, one point of inquiry. Somehow I didn't hear who nominated Miss Eiler and Mr. Forbes.
Mr. Strachan nominated Ms.
Okay.
Eiler, and I nominated Mr. Forbes and Mr. Hopkins.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So no objections? Is that where we're at? Hearing none. Congratulations, Strategic Planning Committee. And then we have our last one here, which is Website and Information Technology Committee, otherwise known as WITCOM. We have 5 vacancies for this one, and this is desperate. This is a desperate need one. I can't be running the IT stuff by myself. I am very much a boomer, and that's a state of mind. It's not necessarily an age thing. I can only use Twitter, occasionally use my phone, and then that's kind of where we're at. And I figured out Zoom a while back, but we need someone that knows what they're doing on this committee. And it looks like we have 2 people that know what they're doing, which is great. So I will go ahead and open nominations for Website and Information Technology Committee.
I will nominate Mr. Tyler Collins.
Mr. Strachan nominates Mr. Collins. I will nominate Mr. Nathaniel Moore. Are there any other nominations? Oh, I see that. Excellent. Yeah, if you could, if you guys know anybody that's good with websites, specifically WordPress, because that's what we use, I'd like to move off of it at some point in time and get a better website. Our website is not great, and me managing it, I mean, if I can kind of manage it, that shows how not great it is, but we can do better. And it'd be great to have people doing that. So are there any other nominations for WITCOM? Going once, going twice. All right, nominations are closed. Well, I guess Mr. Collins and Mr. Moore aren't here to accept their nominations, but I'm going to assume that because they applied, they would accept their nominations. I'm going to go ahead and move them as a slate. So I move that we appoint Mr. Collins and Mr. Moore for Website Information Technology Committee. That leaves 3 vacancies for this one. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to nominating them as a slate or to appointing them as a slate? Hearing none, Mr. Collins and Mr. Moore are on WITCOM. Fantastic. We got through that a lot sooner than the 15 minutes that was allotted. It didn't seem like it, but we did. All right, so just as a reminder, and I guess this can be an action item, so if the secretary would be so kind as to update the Google groups at his earliest convenience, as soon as you do that, if you could let me know, then what I'll do is I'll send out the welcome emails to the committees. So more for Mr. Tucker's edification, since he's probably not familiar, for every committee has their own Google group where that's how you communicate. All emails go through it. All official correspondence goes through that group, just kind of how you emailed XCOM to get a hold of us to let us know that you wanted to apply for these committees. So a welcome email will go out. You'll be part of that Google group. Any email that goes to that Google group, you'll get automatically forwarded to you. And then, you know, we'll set, every committee sets its first meetings. Usually they're standing meetings. So once every 2 weeks, something like that, you pick a day that most people can do it and you meet. It's better. I try to do in my youth. I was ignorant, and I thought that we could do a sort of, you know, a kind of free for all meeting, and we'll just figure it out as time. You know, every couple of weeks we'll figure it out and change it up. But that doesn't work. People like especially libertarians. They really like rigidity and no change. So keeping it till one specific day, one specific time usually seems to work out. The autism is real. So, all right. So everyone be on the lookout for that. Hopefully we can get that done within the next, I'll say within the next week and a half to 2 weeks is when that can happen. So as soon as I get that, we'll move forward there. Any questions on the committees or the elections before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Awesome. All right. Next item on the agenda is National Convention delegate appointment. So again, We've had a few people reach out. There has to be a little bit of investigative work to make sure that they are eligible. Once that's done, we can always appoint them come May 20th and see how that works out. I'm sure we'll get a lot more people since then, or we'll get a lot more people wanting to be delegates by that time. But until then, we do have one person who specifically requested to be a delegate now that he can be, given that there is no longer a conflict of interest for him. As a reminder, again, the delegate list will be sent over to the LNC Credentials Committee by April 24th. I have about a quarter of the list to go as far as just confirming, and people always drop off, and it's always good to know how many spots we have left and all of that to make things a little bit easier on us come May. But I don't want to do this. For those of you that don't know, as an at-large on the LNC, I think it's my chair address or my at-large address. Anyway, I'm on the Credentials Committee Google group, and people are always changing stuff every five minutes, it seems. So I'd like to just send the one list and call it a day with one updated list later on. So that's why it's just easier for everybody instead of having to have everyone keep track of everything simultaneously and, you know, juggling all these states and stuff. So anyway, we have one member who would like to do the honors.
Do we need to move to appoint Matt Butts a delegate, or do we approve him as a delegate?
So we move to appoint him as a delegate. So every delegate appointment from here on out, since the adjournment of convention, is done by the executive committee.
Then I move that we appoint Matt Butts to our delegate list.
Fantastic. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Stump. She beat Mr. Nichols. Slow on the draw there. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, is there any objection to the appointment of Matthew Butts to the national delegate list for California? Hearing none. All right. Mr. Butts is now a national delegate, and I will add him now. All right, cool. Next item on the agenda, as you all know, I unfortunately will not be going to convention next month. So there will need to be a delegate chair appointment. It's my understanding that Dr. McElroy would like to be the delegate chair for California. This is something that should be able to be done by the executive committee. So I will go ahead and
I have an alternative motion.
Mr. Dean.
I'm concerned that I'm a little concerned. In fact, I'm very concerned about just grabbing random people to slot them in to the delegate chair position. And I think that our bylaws actually contemplate that already. So if I may, I move that the executive committee recognize Gary Alstad as the chair of the state delegation, pursuant to the LPCA bylaws as shown there in the chat.
Well, so that wouldn't require a motion. So it's my understanding that Dr. McElroy wanted to be the delegate chair, which is why I was going to move to appoint her as delegate chair. It wouldn't be a random person. She was credentials committee chair. She's aware of how this works. If she doesn't want to do it, then the vice chair would by default be the delegation chair, because where the chair cannot fulfill his duties, the vice chair steps in automatically. So that wouldn't require a motion. My
concern, though, is that I don't know that we are necessarily empowered to declare a chair. I think that the way the rules are worked is that the delegation would declare its own chair if they saw fit to do so. Can we inquire with the parliamentarian about this?
We can. Would the parliamentarian like to weigh in?
Thank you. Don't kill me, Adrian. I do think Mr. Dean is correct on this point that Mr. Alstad automatically is. And I don't think the executive committee has the power to put somebody else in. The delegation certainly does. The delegation could depose Mr. Alstad and put in whoever they want. But in your absence, he takes your duties.
So to make sure I understand this correctly, would this require a motion at all?
No.
Or it would just be a default then?
It would be automatic.
Should the delegates decide to do whatever else they want at convention, that would be on them?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is why I made the motion as a recognize and not as an appoint. Just to just to say that. But if no motion is required, then I'm happy to withdraw my motion.
Okay, it wasn't seconded, so we're good. Is the vice chair still here?
Yeah, I am for a couple.
Are you okay with being delegate chair in my absence?
Yeah.
Are you okay with being deposed if the delegates deem you unfit or authoritarian or Hitler-like?
It's going to be a peaceful coup, right? It's not.
It's going to be mostly peaceful.
Mostly
I'm sure.
peaceful.
It's
Yes.
going to be mostly peaceful. We'll find out, I guess.
Mostly fiery, but mostly peaceful. All
It's
right.
going to be mostly. It's probably going to be a little fiery, but it's going to be mostly peaceful. So I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, that's fine then. That works out.
Mr. Chair, I do have a point of information.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sullivan.
For whomever could answer, how would the process of, if say we wanted to appoint Dr. McElroy as delegate chair, what is that process, or does that happen at convention? Does it happen by informing the LNC chair during, how does that work?
That would happen at convention, but I'll let the parliamentarian go into details if she'd like.
Okay, yes, please.
Yeah, then the national bylaws say that the delegation chair is automatically the state chair unless the delegation chooses otherwise and notifies the national secretary. That's the national bylaws, which of course, would refer back to yours, in which Mr. Alfsed is acting chair in the absence of the chair. So
okay,
I think specifically, if I could just for a minute, and Mr. Sullivan can correct me if I'm wrong, but just to make sure, I think he was asking specifically when that would happen or how that would happen.
Yeah, the process.
Like at what point in time just like a cursory overview of the process specifically.
That would be up to the delegation once they're credentialed at convention.
Okay, it doesn't have
so
to
once
be like
they're credentialed, they decide. Is I guess what I'm hearing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, once the delegation is the delegation, the XCOM really has no power over them at all. The delegation is running the show at that point.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that the delegation is in a position to do that. I mean, doing that, I think, would be a Herculean, rancorous, chaotic, and ridiculous lift. But,
yeah,
absolutely.
That's my concern, is that the California delegation gets bogged down in who ends up being chair.
If somebody in the delegation, somewhere along the line, I guess somebody would have to call a meeting. And then that decision would have to get made. Somehow all 100 of us would have to somehow be together for that. It would be a mess. But the bylaws basically state that can happen at any time. That power has always resided with the delegation. I don't know that it's ever been used, but that power has
if I could make a tiny bit of commentary, if the body would indulge me.
Yeah, of course.
I haven't been to a million conventions, but I've been to some, and I've only seen this happen once. And I find it highly unusual. It's a thankless job, and I would be very surprised and disappointed in the California delegates if they tried something. It's not the right word, it's their right, but this isn't some glory position with any kind of power. It's a grunt work position, and it happened in Reno. I forgot what delegation it was. Even if I remembered, I wouldn't call them out. And I've never seen it happen before. And I trust that the California delegation's not going to be doing anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to happen. If for some reason the vice chair is unable to go at the last minute, and or something happens to him, knock on wood that it doesn't. But if something were to happen, then that's when the situation should arise. And again, my apologies for not being able to go to convention. This shouldn't even really be an issue. But I have, despite all the jeering I like to give and all the pokes I like to make with the vice chair, he's more than competent, literally a rocket scientist. So I think he can figure out the delegate stuff. And I will go on the record as saying that I would be incredibly disappointed if anything were to happen in my absence and the vice chair was not the delegation chair. And I would expect that the executive committee would obviously, do whatever they could in their power as delegates to ensure that no nonsense takes place at convention. It's going to be contentious enough. We don't need to add, fuel to the fire here, especially when there's literally nothing on the line here. It is a thankless job. It's quite frankly a pain in the ass, and you know, we should let people do the work that are supposed to be doing the work in those situations. So I have full confidence in the vice chair. Should that not happen, I would suggest Dr. McElroy, but again, up to the delegates to decide. And I just hope that no funny business or nonsensical stuff. California does not have a reputation as of this moment, as opposed to some other states, when it comes to any sort of contentious stuff, especially on the national level. So I would like to keep that. Going. I guess that tradition, for lack of a better way to put it, going. We have to set an example. As I've said before, as California goes, so does the rest of the country. This is of course not my old adage, but it is an old adage. And if we set a good example without any drama, any sort of nonsense, then hopefully other states will follow suit in that respect. So I would hope that all of you that will be there at convention do your best to ensure that nonsensical stuff is cut to a minimum. All right, I think we're done with that then. Anything else on this? I mean, we're already at time, but if anyone else wants to add anything before we move on. Cool beans. Move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a candidate endorsement. So again, for all of you that were here, I think everyone on this call was here last time. Mr. Tim Grant was seeking an endorsement as Calaveras County Supervisor. The issue that everyone remembers the issue that we encountered last time, and that was apologies were given by Mr. Butts in real time. So we had to push the endorsement to today. Mr. Butts is not here to speak on the endorsement. Again, I think we heard everything that Mr. Grant had to say. So at this point, it's just if someone wants to make the motion to endorse him, you're welcome to do so. I don't know if this is going to be contentious or not. We can do this as a roll call vote. I guess once we get there, we'll see. This is what we'll do. I mean, whoever wants to make the motion can make the motion. If there's a second for it, there's a second. And then we'll go into discussion if there is any. After discussion, we're going to go straight to a roll call vote just to make sure that we don't go into any awkwardness regarding objections or anything like that, just in case. Because I don't know how people feel about it. I know there were a lot of questions in the chat going on last time, and we all know how libertarians get when we question each other's libertarianism, which is really awkward sometimes. I mean, as the one true libertarian, I wouldn't know, but I've heard that it is a contentious thing amongst some of you. So with that being said, Mr. Strachan.
Thank you, Chair. Do we know if Mr. Grant has now registered as a Libertarian?
He did during that meeting, right after, actually. It was like, I think we were at the tail end of the meeting and we got I believe I forwarded that to the executive committee. If I did not, I'd be happy to forward it, but I do have confirmation that he did. Mr. Dean?
Oh, sorry. That actually answered my question.
Okay. All right. So would anyone like to make the motion at this time?
I would love to make that motion, actually, that we would offer him endorsement.
Okay, well, let's put a pin in that really quickly. So the vice chair had to leave at 8:14 p.m. We still have quorum, so that's not an issue. Just wanted to note that for the minutes. Okay, so Mr. Cardin has moved to endorse Mr. Tim Grant as Calaveras County Supervisor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Strachan. Is there any discussion on this? Any further discussion, questions, comments, concerns? Praise?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I was under the impression he would be here again. Was I mistaken in that impression?
So I didn't invite, I told him specifically, that's a great question. I said, I think he gave about a 20-minute piece last time and everyone asked their questions. So I didn't think it necessary to put him through that again, or, you know, in the interest of time, since we had so much to do. So him not being here is my doing. So I'm sorry, I probably should have asked the executive committee if they wanted to hear from him again. I assumed, and we all know what they say about people who assume, so that's on me, but I assumed that no one wanted to hear from him further. Mr. Dean knows what I'm talking about, so that's on me. So that wasn't that he you know, gave us the boot or neglected us or something like that.
Okay, no, that's okay. I was just under the impression he'd be here to answer more questions, but it's not a thing. I was just is something that I remembered. I was curious. That's all.
Fair enough. Any further discussion on this motion? All right. Well, when the secretary's ready,
I'm sorry to be that guy. I would like to hear a question.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, what do you mean?
Wait, Kurt, did you have questions to ask, Mr. Grant?
I wasn't, just to be candid, I wasn't, how do I put this delicately? I wasn't super enthralled by his answers or the debate that he was in. I don't know. I was hoping to get a little more out of him, is all. It's not like it's a personal beef or anything. I wasn't super impressed, is all. He seems like a nice enough guy. I swear this isn't like a personal attack. Just
Okay, no,
from what I heard.
That's fair. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to be clear, and this is why I'm kind of just reading the room here, and that's where we're going to do a roll call vote. This would require a majority to pass. I know that some people, weren't particularly happy with the answers. I know there was a lot of back and forth in the comment, in the chat. I'm sorry, and I do appreciate you. Some of, Starchild and I don't see eye to eye in a lot of stuff. He did ask very fair questions in the chat, and I'm glad that some of you took it upon yourselves to ask the questions. So that's, that is what it is. So that's fine. But that's why I figured we'd go through a roll call vote. We'll see what happens there, and that's fine. So, Mr. Dean?
No, again, I'm fine. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I mean, are you though?
You have no idea how fine I am.
I have some idea. I did misspeak. I have the bylaws in front of me right here, and so I did look it up ahead of time, and I just pulled up the window. So I misspoke. It will require 2/3 to pass this, unless the parliamentarian would like to correct me. But I was incorrect about that. It is 2/3, not a majority to pass for an endorsement. But a roll call vote will be done nevertheless. Mr. Hartwig.
One potential concern I had about endorsing Mr. Grant that I think has maybe been allayed a bit by my own research was one of the answers he gave about in regards to what his priorities were, I guess, and he said something to the effect of encouraging more businesses to come to Calaveras County, and there wasn't really more discussion after that. Part of my concern was, well, that could mean a lot of things depending on your political persuasion. That could mean giving out subsidies to businesses, or that could mean a lot of very not libertarian things. I did do a little bit of my own research to see what more I could find on him. One thing I did find was an interview where he had given where he was, I think, specifically talking about that exact subject and talking about that he would himself go to like business fairs and personally encourage and try to convince businesses to bring their business to Calaveras County. So at least as far as that potential issue I had, from what I could find, just like I said in that searching, obviously he's not here for me to ask, but seemed like, okay, that seemed like a potentially an acceptable libertarian answer to that potential issue.
Fair enough. That's a very good point. Yeah, we didn't really get to push him on that, and that's on me for not inviting him back. I suspected that most of our questions were answered, and I thought that people might just reach out to him individually. Again, my assumption is my own fault, so I do apologize for him not being here to be able to answer a few more questions if some of you have. So the motion has been made and second. Is there any further debate on this? I think we're at time, but I'm not.
I'm sorry. Has this motion been seconded?
It was seconded by Mr. Strachan.
Oh.
So we have, how many members do we have left here? 11, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 11, which what's 2/3? Is that 8? My math right?
As a point of information, we need 2/3 of who's here, not 2/3 of the committee.
Right, 2/3 of who's here and present and voting. So we'll need 8 for this to pass. So whenever if we're done with discussion, the secretary, whenever he's ready, can go ahead and do a roll call vote.
All right. Okay, why don't we start with Mr. Alvstad?
Oh, he left at 11.
Oh,
at
yeah.
11.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep up. I will abstain. Miss Halsey is not here. Or did she show up at some point?
She did not. No, she's not able to make it today.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Butts is also not here. Yep. Ms. Stump,
I will also abstain. I just don't know enough about him to give my endorsement.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Byrd,
Yes.
Mr. Hardwig,
Sorry.
You can pass if you'd like to, if you need a little bit more time to think about it.
Okay, I'll pass for now.
okay. Mr. Nichols,
Aye.
Mr. Strachan, I think you might be muted.
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
No.
why don't we return then to Mr. Hartwig, if you have a vote?
I will abstain.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chair, the vote is currently 5.
Oh wait, did Mr. Cardin vote?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Cardin.
Yes.
Okay. Get used to the new, to the reshuffling of the board composition. All right. Mr. Chair, the vote is 6 yeses, 1 no, and 3 abstentions.
So my vote will not make a difference here. The chair will not vote on this motion.
Mhm.
The motion fails.
Mr.
What we
Chair,
can do,
I have a
we can-
question. Was it?
yes,
I can't find this in your bylaws. Is it in your operating manual? Is that where it's at?
for endorsements.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the bylaws. I just had it pulled up, and I think I.
Does it say a 2/3 like absolute vote or just a 2/3 vote?
I believe it was. I'm sorry. What's the difference?
Well, the difference
Absolute.
is abstentions don't count. That would pass.
Oh no, abstentions do count for us. It's not like the LNC. I don't think. I could be wrong
No,
about
well,
that. But
that's not an LNC thing. That's a Roberts thing. So I wanted to look at the bylaw.
yeah, if you wouldn't mind weighing in, then I closed the bylaws. I'd have to like open it again. My computer's been really slow.
Just as a, well, actually, as a point of information.
Yes.
Or I guess is a, I believe, I'll phrase this in the form of a question. I believe we are referring to bylaw 13, section 5.
Okay, let me look at that.
Let me get my hard copy. Hold on.
Which
My
says
computer's been really slow.
it says a 2/3 majority of the eligible positions on the executive committee shall be required to pass the following. And then item 5B is endorsing or rescinding its endorsement of any candidate for public office.
Okay, I see. Then absences would also be no's because it's not present. So, okay.
Oh. Right, so then it would.
So
sorry, go ahead.
So just to make sure I understand what the parliamentarian is saying and what the secretary seems to be saying, we're talking about then 2/3 of all available executive committee members, whether they're present or not.
Yeah.
No, it's.
I'm sorry, Ms. Robson, you're
Yeah.
not. Yeah, you're not.
Oh.
You're not recognized by the chair. I'm sorry, Ms. Harlos.
Yeah, it says a 2/3 majority, which is terrible wording, by the way, of the eligible positions on the executive committee. That's pretty much the same thing as saying the entire executive committee, unless you have some exceptions for certain positions that are not eligible to vote. That's just some really
Oh, I
strange wording.
So then you're saying that it would have required, since we only have 14 members on the executive committee, well, technically speaking, because we have 1 vacancy, that would mean that it would have required 9 to pass. Is that correct? Because
Well, whatever.
the entire.
Yeah, we have the entire. So if you said there's 13, it would be whatever 2/3 of 13 is, which, I'm like Barbie, math is hard.
Well, I mean, it's 14, so it would have been 9 unless my math is off here. But either way, it wouldn't have passed.
It didn't pass.
If I'm not mistaken. Okay, so what we can do then is, I mean, let me just read the room here. We're at time for this, but I'll just do a straw poll because I love them so much. Would people that abstained or voted no want to hear more from him outside of, I mean, we do have his personal information. I do have his email address. I can send his email address to the XCOM private list so that any of you can reach out in the future, and then we can revisit this in May if we think that the vote will change. If we're not, if the people that abstained or that voted no are not going to change their minds, then I wouldn't want to put this through the ringer again.
I'd be willing to change my
mind.
I'd be willing to change my mind with more information. I don't know. I didn't get. I don't know.
Mr. Sullivan is of my same opinion.
Oh, I have an idea. Let's do this. So, CSC will have their first meeting. So this is why I kind of, for those of you that either don't know or don't remember, one of the primary functions that I wanted to do is just that there was this transition and we had convention and all this stuff happened like during the time. So what I wanted to see, one of the things that I want the CSC to do is when there's a candidate that is seeking an endorsement or seeking some sort of financial assistance, which we're not really providing in that capacity anymore, we're going through consultants and that whole bit. So what I'd like the CSC to do is vet the candidate first, and then we can open that up to any XCOM member. So let's say that we have, I'm just going to throw something out there. We have April 28th, we have our first CSC meeting, and one of the first things on the agenda is vetting Mr. Grant again and giving him an opportunity to, not recorded, not on the record, whatever, gets to give his spiel and his pitch. Any XCOM member that wishes to attend, so those that weren't sold, that either abstained or voted no, would be welcome to attend, of course. Ask them, questions, and then based off of that, moving into a future meeting, we would be able to say, just going into it knowing that we pretty much have the vote set to go, so that it's not, embarrassing or something like that, if that makes sense. So we can do that. The first CSC meeting happens, then okay, that makes sense. So if you guys want to do that, we can wait for a CSC meeting and do it then, and then we'll only put it on the agenda in May if it's something that looks like it's going to pass the threshold of, well, we have 14 as of now eligible, so I guess it would be, would it still be 9 or would it be 10?
No, it'd be 10.
It'd be 10. Yeah, it'd be 10. So we'd need 10 anyway. So right now we have, what was it? What did the secretary say? 6 yeses? Is that where we were at?
We are at 6. That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, cool. So then we need to whip 4 votes, and that can include those that are not present here. So like had Mr. Butts been here, that probably would have been a yes. I don't know how the vice chair would have voted if he was here. So maybe just a little bit of work there to do. So it's very possible that this could pass at the May meeting. So we'll do that. As soon as the first CSC meeting is scheduled, we'll invite Mr. Grant to join us there. Executive committee will be notified of that meeting so that they can attend and ask questions. And I'll also, just as a preemptive thing, we can put that on I'll put that as an action item for myself. I will email you all Mr. Grant's email so that you can follow up with questions that you have based on the article. I think that was dropped in there by Mr. Hartwig, and any other follow-ups, and then that'll just make it a little bit smoother. Yeah. To XCOM. Okay. Cool. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda here. We're almost done. I don't think we're going to be here past 9, even though I did schedule it for 2 hours. So, okay. Convention committee report. I did send it out. Apologies. So one, I sent it out a little bit later than I did last year, but there was, it was 37 pages. So make it that way you will. There was a lot of stuff that had to be worked out and all of that. So I just want to cover a few highlights here. While I pull that up, I had to close it out while I was looking for the bylaws thing again. Does anyone have, well, actually, I don't need the report. I'm gonna wing this because I wrote the thing. So a couple of things. I guess some of the most important highlights, the thing that I really, really want to harp on the most is that we made over $26,000 in revenue. That is a record for this party. I'd be almost willing to bet, although I don't think I put it in the report, but I'd be willing to bet it's probably a record for any state affiliate as far as conventions are concerned. Most of them lose money. They're lucky to break even. And it's because a little bit of economics in one lesson came into play here. So something that was decided very early on, as I was speaking with you, some of you offline before we started this meeting. It was very important for this committee, if it was going to make, if we were going to go through the whole pomp and circumstance thing again, which I was very much against after the last convention. We're going to just do focus on business, just do that. We're not going to focus on business and want all this other stuff. We better make it worth our while. A lot of planning goes into a convention, a lot of hours, countless hours. So it needs to be worth our while. And given all the hiccups that we experienced, not only the attacks from presidential candidates, the attacks from out-of-state members, attacks from in-state members, the whole AV debacle, that whole thing, I think it could have been more successful. I will say, this is going to sound a little bit funny, but I'm a little disappointed that we didn't meet the $30,000 threshold. That's what I really wanted to hit. So the targets did change periodically throughout. So when I first took over after Mr. Lima had to drop out because he wasn't going to be able to attend the convention, the target goal was making at least 5 figures. So making at least $10,000 was the minimum, since in a non-presidential year, in the north of all places, we were able to come in just under 9, I think. So $10,000 was the minimum. I always want to one-up myself whenever possible. Then as it became clear that certain aspects were happening and that certain things were going to come to fruition that I didn't know were going to come to fruition at the time. So of course, Mr. Kennedy coming and attending our convention and being part of that, I saw the number as 20,000. And as the money kept rolling in, people were buying their packages and the sponsorships were coming through, then 30,000 was the one that I wanted to hit. Of course, we fell shy. I do put the lack of success during the gala on me. It could have been done better. I wish I'd done the schedule differently. Miss Stump did save us with her donations. Her handmade, beautiful concoctions alone brought in over $2,000. It was over $2,500, something like that. But it was just she never fails to
over 3,000.
Was it okay? All right, over 3. I got that wrong.
Yeah, it was over 3,000.
But it's amazing that she's able to do this for us, and she never falls short and comes through time and time again. The biggest issue was just that, again, I talked about this in the report, the gala got pushed back a little bit because the panels were a little delayed. And on top of that, it was just hard keeping people in the room. And, to be fair, when you have multiple people going up, our presidential candidates are not the most exciting people when they're sitting up there talking, even if it's for 5 minutes and they're going back to back to back. People all of a sudden had to go grab a drink or go to the bathroom or wash their hair, and then they never came back. So it did make it a little bit trying, and I wish that we would have spread it out a little bit more. Larry Sharp did the best that he could, and he did a fantastic job. I mean, we've seen what he can do in the past. He more than pays for himself. He still paid for himself this time around, not only hosting the panels and doing all that, but all in all, objectively, it was a success in every metric. I wanted it to be a little bit better, but that's because I'm kind of a perfectionist. And I always like to push myself to you'd be hard pressed to find something. I'd be hard pressed to find something that I'm absolutely 100% happy with all the time. I always want to see how I could have done it better. And that's part of just being, honest when it comes to doing a postmortem in a report like that and seeing. And those were things that I talked about in the report, about things that could have been done better and I'd like to see done better in the future, whether by me or a future committee. Now, speaking of that, really quickly, there is something that I did jump over, and I thought I just realized right now I didn't mention it. No, I did mention it. I'm sorry, never mind. So all in all, and we were able to inspire some of the biggest critics of the system here in our counterparts in Texas to do a sort of similar thing, like the polling thing or whatever, which we all know the candidates are pretty much paying others to do anyway. It's fine, whatever. But they were able to make about $50,000 from their thing after criticizing this committee heavily, and after criticizing our party heavily, they were able to make some money, taking a page out of our book. So good for them. I'm honestly really happy that they were able to do that. I hope that their convention was a success and that they're able to point to that as a good marker for their net profit. And I'd be curious to see what that convention committee report looks like. Oh, they don't have a convention committee. I think it's just the chair there that does everything. Whatever report comes out after convention, the numbers, I'd be curious to see that. But all in all, it was a great success. We were the only, I think New York ended up getting Mr. Kennedy to show up. I don't remember if that was the case or not. I remember that he was about to go to New York. I don't know if he did, but either case, we were the first state affiliate to do this kind of multi-party panel sort of a thing, and give our members and out-of-state members that came and flew in a pretty good bang for their buck. We had a lot of LNC members there, which was really cool. And overall, it was very positive from people that weren't deranged about the fact that Bobby Kennedy was there. It was positive overall. I just wish it could have been better. That's just me. But in any case, I think the report speaks for itself. Mr. Dean.
Does this agenda item need to end in a motion to adopt this report?
It does not. It's just a
Okay.
report being presented. Yeah. So it's just it's going to be attached to the minutes. I may send an updated version. There's Mr. Brown caught. There's one thing he wanted added. He was a member of the convention committee report, and I agree with him. There's one sentence I wanted to add there, and then just I think he caught two minor changes. So before the minutes come out, before the report is attached to the minutes, I'll send an updated version probably tomorrow. They're very minor changes, but outside of that, it was accepted by the committee. They thought it was the right amount of harsh, maybe a little bit bordering on too harsh sometimes, but they thought that who was it that said it was true and it needed to be said? That was kind of my entire that was my entire thought process throughout this whole thing, and I think it is really important. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the LNC on that report privately from people who have read it. So in any case, I would like to see the changes instituted by the next convention. So if you saw, we circumvented the in the email that I sent out earlier today, the convention committee appointment, because there's only one appointment and it's for the chair of that. Mr. Cardin, given his background and his professional acumen in event planning and hotel stuff, I'm sure that there's a proper word for it, but accommodations and that whole thing. He wants to be on the committee next year, which would be fantastic to have him on, because I tagged him in for stuff in the past, and I know that he knows what he's talking about. I don't think he wants to chair the thing. No one ever wants to chair it, but I would like to keep it bare bones moving forward and see how we can spend the least amount of money on a smaller scale while making the most amount of money that we can, and see what we can do. I would like the majority of our revenue as the year progresses to be coming from the recruitment committee and the membership committee and strategic planning, and what we're doing in that respect to be able to get some revenue for the party. So I do have some plans in that respect. I hope that the committees, do their share of the work and all of that. But I would like to I was serious about those recommendations. I think that they're very important given the amount of work that goes into it. It's just not worth it for the majority of people that aren't willing to do the work, but criticize every little part of every aspect of everything because they can. So any questions for the former convention committee chair? Any accolades? Any words of amazingness?
I was about to.
You don't have to
but
laugh
now,
that hard, Mr. Dean. Mr. Dean just started laughing. No, I'm just kidding.
Now
No,
it's
really
weird. I was about to say, despite all of the comments you made about how you think it could have gone better, or how this could have been perfect, or the gala or whatever, I was going to say, before you said that, I was going to say, this, despite all that, I think you did a really good job, and definitely it couldn't have gone as well as it did without you as involved like you were. So, but now that you said that, asking for accolades is too weird, so I'm not even going to make that comment.
So you're not going to do the thing
No,
that you
no,
just
I'm
said.
dead.
No, yeah. No, I appreciate it. I know that seems to be the sentiment around it, and I do appreciate it, and it's nice to hear. I really wish things could have gone a little bit better, just for my thing, my the chip on my shoulder to make sure that I can do the best. Not who is it? What was that book? Best that you can be, whatever. It was something lame like that. Anyway, that is something that I always try to do something better every time around, when at all possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed convention, for those of you that were there, and that we were able to put on a good show there. I very much enjoyed it, even though, as much as you can, running the whole thing and doing whatever, but it was fun. It was really, I had a very interesting was a very good time. I think convention went pretty smoothly all the way around. Rocky start, but finished strong, and that was good. Meeting Dr. West was fantastic. I know Gary was really excited for me, and he was excited for himself. I'm not one of those people that takes pictures with people, but Gary kind of put me in a spot where he's like, you need to take a picture with them. And then Dr. West just like grabbed me and he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I wasn't going to say no. But I've never been one of those people. I don't think there's ever been a picture of me anywhere with like a celebrity or anything like that, or someone of high notoriety, which was kind of cool. And that's why I opted not to take one with Mr. Kennedy, actually, which when I had my opportunities, believe me. Anyway, any other questions, comments, concerns surrounding convention? Hospitality industry, that's what, I don't know what dumb thing I said. Okay, Mr. Cardin, I don't need you upstaging me. Mine was cooler. He was happier to see me. We talked. I don't need you trying to take my one moment of fame. But what's that?
Didn't I take the picture of you with him? Or did Gary?
Did you? I thought it was Alfstead, but maybe it was you. I don't know. I was already like, I was three-quarters of Scotch in by that point, so I don't really remember a whole lot after that. Mr. Dean is incorrect, and I moved to censure him immediately and remove him from the executive committee. No, just kidding. But yeah, all in all, really, it was easily the coolest weekend of my life, having a meeting with both Dr. West and Mr. Kennedy, and getting a chance to put on a show for everybody. That was a lot of fun. All right. Anything else on convention? If you haven't read the report, strongly suggest that you read it. The reviews have come in. It is a very well written and captivating read. So that was from the New York Times, I think. I don't remember. I get all these outlets mixed up. That is another thing I will say. Actually, that's another thing I want to touch on really quickly before we wrap up. The goal of bringing the media attention was something that hasn't even really been done on the national level before, and that was really good. I mean, Mr. Cardin got a chance to talk to various reporters. I know that Mr. Oxford did as well. It was good practice, if nothing else. I know we all know why they were there, but being able to shine the spotlight on the party and other candidates, for me, it's more important on the local level, was good. And this is the kind of practice, and I'm sure Ms. Stump would agree, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but giving them the opportunity to practice and do stuff like this with real reporters from, even though they're legacy media outlets and whatever that we don't care for on a regular basis, that kind of practice, you really can't buy that. And that's something that was cool. So I was happy that Mr. Cardin got to take advantage of it. Mr. Oxford did. I don't know if any of the other candidates that were around out and about got a chance to do that, but not being ignored for once and kind of being the pretty girl at the ball was nice for the Libertarian Party. And I think that's something that we were able to capitalize really well. I think all in all, we were able to put on a serious convention. I mean, there were a couple of caveats that I discussed, but outside of that, I think that they all either called, text, or emailed me afterward and said that they were just surprised. Surprise was a big word that they used at how the convention. I'm sure that they'd heard horror stories in the past, so they were surprised, and they were happy that they were invited to come out, and that they got to meet a lot of people. So that was good to hear. So the media attention was really great. And the big thing too is that moving forward, I do have contacts, as I said at the end of the report, with all these outlets in some capacity, whether it's email, phone number, whatever. I guess that's really it. No one uses snail mail, but email, phone numbers for these people where I can, text them if they're stories of interest or anything else that they may want to cover. I mean, obviously, I have no control over what they print, what they decide is fascinating or newsworthy or not, but having an in like that for when something big happens. So the whole lawsuit right now with the Secretary of State that we're doing with Judicial Watch, or if anything happens, comes to fruition with the Pro-Rep Coalition, or any of the other cool things that may or may not come to fruition within the next few months. These are good contacts to have, even though we think that they're the scourge of the earth sometimes, most of the time. That's the kind of stuff that we need to capitalize on whenever we can. That's just the reality that we're in as a political party. We have to be able to play nice with these people when it suits us, just like they play nice with us when it suits them. So, all right, anything else on this topic? Cool. Moving on. So this will be just so that when the committee reports come out in May for some of the, not every committee will have a report, especially if we're just kicking things off, but it'll be more of a preliminary what we're going to do as the year moves forward. This will be omitted from that because this was already given and submitted. So, all right, the next item on the agenda, speaking of convention stuff, Hilton points and gift cards. Did we come to a general consensus? I know that we talked a little bit about it on the thread. There were some things thrown out. I would like to have an actual plan for this and not just keep punting it down the road, whether that be that we save it for X, Y, or Z thing, whether we're, whatever it is. I just like to have a solidified use of these things. What seems to be the general consensus around this? I know that a few of you had very strong opinions.
I think the best use, I'll just speak for myself, is to just kind of have them be a party asset and used maybe for guests lodging in the future. I don't remember if there was an issue with that or not, but if that's possible, like using points to bring Larry Sharp or whoever happens to guest in the future. I think he pays for himself, but just housing guests and such people we want to bring to convention. I think that's probably the best use.
Okay, using for housing guests. So just to be clear, we wouldn't be able to bring them, but we would be able with that, but we might be able to house them by themselves.
Yeah.
So for instance, let's say that's a fair point. So for instance, let's say that the convention committee vision for next year comes to fruition. We're doing bare bones everything, which means no room block, no concessions, none of this stuff, and we're just paying for stuff up front. We may be able to use it. I could just transfer the points to, if we get one person to come out for whatever reason, let's say we'll use Larry Sharp as an example. So let's say that we bring him out just for the gala portion, or some other person just for the gala stuff, then at least we can use the points or the gift cards, because they're different entities, obviously, for just putting him up for, and we just give it to him directly. Like, instead of comping you this is what one room night's going to cost, and we'll comp you the difference or do whatever. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Ms. Dunn.
Is there an expiration date on any of these points?
So for the Hilton, there are not, because I'm an active, so they get transferred. They can't transfer them to entities. They only transfer them to individuals. And since I'm CEO of the party, they're under my account. And because I usually exclusively use Hilton, they don't expire. If for some reason there was one, I don't think it was Hilton, it might have been Marriott, but at one point in time, there was the thing like, they send you an email months in advance telling you, please use your points by this time because this amount of points will expire by this date. So if that happens, then I can bring that to everybody's attention. Or at worst case scenario, I'll just buy the points or something like that and make a donation to the party or something like that so that they don't go to waste like they have in the past. But the gift cards do not expire for the Marriott. So we have the 350, I think it's $350 in the Marriott gift cards, and those do not expire. The points do expire for Marriott, but if you transfer them over to a gift card, then you're good, which those have been done.
Okay, because if we're waiting, if we're waiting to use them and they expire, then it's better to convert to gift cards and then use them somehow else. But if we can use them for lodging, that is for any speaker guests, that is my first choice. But convert them to gift card before they expire, if that becomes a must need be.
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to, for the Hilton ones, you can transfer, you can't make them into gift cards. You can do like a thing. So I have an Amex, so they tie for some reason. I don't know. I think they just have a partnership or whatever. So you can get like stuff through Amex through that, and you can transfer them into different types of gift cards, but they're not like Hilton gift cards. It's just, you can, instead of having to request that Mr. Dean give me Apple gift cards in the future, I could just transfer them to like Apple gift cards and just pay myself. So instead of asking him directly, I could just cut the middleman out and just do it myself. But since he's so willing, it doesn't really matter on my end. But they don't expire as of now. That is subject to change perhaps at some point in the future. But as of now, because I'm an active member, they do not expire, and I can transfer them to, whether I run for chair next year or whoever the next chair is. If those points are still there, they are fully transferable, and we do have an accurate account per the reports what is the party's and what is mine, so that there's no confusion. So I do have my own points, obviously, but all the party points are accounted for there. Mr. Brown.
Yeah, but I have a couple things to clarify. One is that if I remember correctly, the points can't be used for funding convention, right? We can't use those points towards like paying the hotel for the convention space itself, right?
Correct.
Okay, but can we use
generally speaking, we cannot.
Can we use gift cards towards that?
So we haven't been to a Marriott property since Long Beach, I think 2021 or 2022, whatever year that was. So maybe they all have different rules, so they are able to set their own rules and stuff. I just know with the points, it's like really weird. So the Embassy Suites, as you guys recall from not this year, but last year, they were willing to take the points separately, so it wasn't part of the room block to be able to house Mr. Cohen and Mrs. Cohen in that room. But because it's the Embassy Suites, it would have come in at a severely less than what they were actually worth, which is why he's like, it's not worth it. You're better off using this for something completely independent and maybe at a cheaper Hilton property, because you're going to get literally half the value of what they could be worth somewhere else, because they're all different depending on the high end level of whatever. But yeah, traditionally, it's not worth it.
One of the thoughts I have about all this is it sounds like we might accumulate points a lot faster than we can spend them as an I think it makes sense to keep some as an asset for like a guest speaker or something, getting their room or whatever. But it sounds like we accumulate them a lot faster than we spend them on that kind of thing. And if that continues to be the case, it would make sense at some point to either raffle off like free rooms for members, or I don't know, some other way to monetize those, instead of just having like, I could see like, after 5 years you've got like, oh, we have $100,000 in gift cards that we've never used. Is at some point it'll make sense to start doing something like that. But although
I agree,
we should definitely keep some for speakers and all that kind of stuff.
I agree. Like the points that we have now, I think I looked up the value and what one could get for, I think it's the 200 I think we're at 200 and some odd thousand or whatever. They could theoretically be I think it covers like 3 nights at a regular Hilton, 3 or 4 nights maybe, if even that, at a regular Hilton. So that means half that for an Embassy Suites, or for, I don't know what the higher tier is. You're Mr. Brown, but I'm just Abe Brown, so I don't know what the higher tier Hilton is. So probably just like maybe you get to walk in the door for free at one of those. But I don't know. I'm going to censure Mr. Hartwig. We don't bring out Motel 6s in this chat. This is a Wendy's. This is I don't know. I don't know how much of an asset it would be depending on how much we end up accumulating, because what happens is it all depends on the concessions. And so if we're going to do in the future is it's going to be dependent on whatever the convention committee does in the future. So if we do bare bone stuff, we could theoretically just use them all there to pay for, let's again use Larry Sharp as the example, for him to come out for 3 nights and then just put him up in that, and then we blow through them and call it a day. The other the other option, of course, Mr. Dean is the worst. The other option, of course, is instead of raffling them off, I would like to monetize them. I'm always about making money for the party in whatever way we can, but I do think that we need to be better about treating our volunteers. Those of you who are on committees, those of you on the XCOM, those of you who do things, or as a reward for the award winner for that year or something like that, or we can split the difference somehow. So it seems like the consensus is to hold on to them for right now and see if we can use them in a way that's beneficial to the party, that saves us money. If we cannot, or it seems like they're sitting there, then perhaps we can do the raffle thing or something along those lines to make it work, and either make it worth our while, to motivate volunteers and stuff like that moving forward, which is fine with me. All right, sounds good. So we will keep them, and then we'll see what the convention committee comes up with and how that stuff plays out in the coming months. And that'll probably give us an idea of what we want to do with this kind of stuff moving forward. And we might even look into, I know that the LNC has a specific, something that I didn't know until I was on the LNC, is that the LNC in the policy manual has something, we're not allowed on the LNC to take points for a convention or something like that. So because it goes to a person, and then the transferring them of all the whole, whatever. So instead we there's, I forgot what the language is in there. I'm sure the parliamentarian knows, but the language in there says something to the effect of, in lieu of getting the points, we just get other concessions. So that might be something that we want to start doing in the future. So we waive our right to the 100,000 points that we would be otherwise entitled to because of the money that we're spending at this event or this hotel, and instead we opt to get this thing instead, right? Like free internet or free hardwire internet or a free this or a free that, something that is beneficial to the party that we don't have to spend money on. Most of our, that would probably be the smartest thing to do. That joke will never die, and I'm happy for it. It should live on forever, and it's not even a joke. All right, next item on the agenda, annual convention location. So as I said, so we don't have at this point, we don't have a convention committee chair. I'm going to start calling around before the end of the month and I'm going to do my best to find a good spot and lobby for a place in the Bay Area. I think I said that last time. The Bay Area is long overdue for a convention, in my opinion. And we've gone to the South a lot. So we went to Sacramento, which is not the Bay Area. It's the poor man's Central Valley, if that. So I would like to move forward with the proposal for that. And I'm going to do my best to find something there. Again, you guys are all welcome to, just because you submit a proposal does not mean that 1, you'll get it, 2, that you have to be convention committee chair, 3, that you have to be on the convention committee. If you're able to find a good deal somewhere and do whatever, then awesome. But again, I'm going to be pretty dead set on the budget that I put in the convention committee report, just kind of what comes in for sponsorships. I don't want to get into details about other conventions, but I think it's really, really important. I'm a firm believer of having money in the bank account before you spend it, and not just hoping that you get a donor to come through at the last minute or whatever to bail you out. I think it's really, really, really important that you have the money in the bank to spend. And then from that point, be able to build. What is it with you and Sizzler? And then be able to build off of that moving forward. Mr. Cardin.
Well, no, so yeah, I agree. Bay Area for this year, and I would do Central for next year, just because it would be super cheap before we have to go to another national in 2026.
That's a fair point. I have no problem with a Central Valley convention. And the one thing that you guys have to put out of your mind, and I probably could have added this into the report, but it should go without saying, there is no pleasing everybody any of the time. Especially when you're dealing with libertarians in the Libertarian Party, you're going to piss off a decent chunk of people, and usually they're just the loudest because they have nothing else going on in their lives, and that's fine. But you have to put that noise away. I have no problem with the Central Valley Convention. I know people were losing their minds when that was even proposed. I think Dr. McElroy had that proposal she had 2 for Fresno and for Clovis. So it's whatever. It's actually Fres Yes now. They're trying to be more positive about it. So it's not Fresno anymore. But I'm fine with that. If people really want to get there, they'll get there. At the end of the day, it's business. You can drive there. At Central Valley, everyone should be able to drive to if they can't. You can't rent a car and go out there and you're really intent on it having to be by an airport. Personally, I don't care. People will figure it out. When there's a will, there's a way. Mr. Byrd really wants to go to the national convention, and he's making that happen. People will find a way to do something that they really want to do or make happen, and we don't have to accommodate people at every waking turn just to piss off another group of people. It's whatever, but I agree with that. I'm glad that there seems to be some support in the Bay Area, specifically for Sizzler, and that's fine. But I'm okay with Central Valley next year. But the key here is find proposals or be willing to make one. I do have an RFP that's called a request for proposal that I drafted I'd like the convention committees in the future to start using. That's something that we used for the LNC for meetings and all of that kind of stuff. So I kind of copied and pasted that and made it custom for us. So I would very much, yes. So send me a reminder email and I can update it for our needs, where I perceive our needs to be moving forward next year. And I can send an updated RFP so that you guys have that. And the way that these work is that you have the RFP, you submit it. So you go to the Hilton website or the Marriott website or whatever, and you say, we're thinking of hosting an event here in February of next year. This is what we need. And then they come back with a quote and whether they're able to accommodate, whether they have the weekends open, that whole bit. And then that's how you get the ball rolling. So I'd like to have a venue picked out by probably no later than August, I'd say. So Yeah, probably by August, I would say. If we have to call an emergency meeting just to do that and it doesn't fall into our standing cadence, we'll come to that bridge when we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I do think that at the latest, probably August is a good way to go. So long as everything is solidified, the contract is in hand, we sign it off, and then we pay whatever meager deposit we have to pay to hold the spot. Usually it's about $1,000, $1,500. So start thinking about that, submit the proposals. I will start getting one underway here for the Bay Area. And if Mr. Brown wants to help me with that, he's welcome to. He seems to have connections at Sizzler. So I don't know if that's the other thing. That is the other thing too that I want to point out that I did put in the report, that it does not have to be a hotel. If we find somewhere that's cheap, people will find their own accommodations and they can figure it out. It's not the end of the world. Someone has to drive or do whatever. Everyone's an adult. You're all big boys and girls. And if it saves the party money, that's where we're at. And that's what matters at the end of the day for me. Anyway, I'm here to, my first priority is the party, not where someone is going to, and Mr. Harwood, I know he's like half joking, but that's how the majority of the membership is anyway. They always find something cheaper, not because they're necessarily cheap, but because it's not really that important to people. If we're talking about 2 nights, you don't need to stay in a king size bed with the fluffiest pillows and whatever just to do business. And if that, if that motivates you to come or not come, then you have different priorities than the rest of us, and it is what it is. So next item on the agenda, we're almost done here. In-person executive committee meeting. This we really need to get. I'd like to have a proposal on the table by the May 20th meeting, because the in-person meeting has to happen. Let's see. So May, June. So July, August, or September would be what we're looking at for the meeting. I'd rather not do it during Christmas time. So last time we had to put it off to December or Thanksgiving. There's just so much travel and so much stuff going on during that time. One, it's really a pain to find a weekend to do it that works for the majority of people, and I don't want to be in a situation where we go somewhere and we're in danger of not having quorum. 2, I would like to be able to tie a fundraiser to it, and usually people can't get. There are these things called lifts, Mr. Nichols, or Ubers, or I'll drive you. I'll call my friend Pedro or Jose, and we'll take care of it. It's not a big deal. We'll take you as long as you don't mind hopping on the back of the lawnmower. But the in-person meeting, so the same kind of standard rules apply for this. I do have an RFP, for this as well. And what we can do here is, it doesn't have to be a hotel. We just need a meeting space to do it. And if we could do a fundraiser at someone's house, if we can rent out a small backspace at a restaurant or something to do a fundraiser. I would like to tie a fundraiser into it to make it, not just camaraderie, not just the meeting and then camaraderie and whatever. But Mr. Dean wanted to do Riverside County, which I'm all for. I haven't been to Riverside County probably ever, because why? So now I have a reason to go. And and that's,
you'll never leave. You'll love it.
That seems more like a threat than an invitation at that point.
That's all
like
in the
Hotel
intonation.
California.
You'll never leave. You'll love it.
Are there any rivers in Riverside County?
Are there any what?
Rivers in Riverside County?
One of the only faithful rivers in the state, Kelly. Yeah.
We have
Riverside. Riverside has its own water, which is very rare in California.
Oh shit.
I don't need water. I just need a bar. So if it's by a bar, near a bar, I'm all good. So if we did in Riverside County, totally fine with that. So email me for those of you who, is that where they do it? Is that where Coachella is, in Riverside County?
Yeah, it's in Coachella. It's in Riverside County. And you wouldn't be able to find a room in Coachella Valley in July anyway, because
Coachella. Yeah.
Because Coachella?
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
It will
that
be
shows how little I know.
112 degrees as well.
Everybody's so drunk it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Drunk is the least of their worries, actually, at the end of it all, right? Only the square ones like me would be drunk. Everyone else would be on other stuff. Email me. So I think Mr. Dean, Mr. Cardin, email me for the RFP, and then I'll get those out to you before the end of the week. I'll have to make some minor adjustments, I'm sure, to tailor it more to what we need, and then we can go from there. But I would like to have it July, August, or September is what we're looking at for the in-person meeting. So, and as a reminder, the in-person meeting will circumvent, per the motion that passed last time, that will serve the purpose of the standing meeting. So it's not like we have a virtual meeting and then the in-person meeting. So whatever weekend we have it, for Q3 will be the meeting time for that one. So cool. Anything else on this? Almost done here. Very cool. All right. Last real thing on the agenda is just want to remind everybody that the next quarterly meeting, that the next executive committee meeting is, per our standing rule, that ends at the end of the term, is on Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. again. This is our quarterly meeting. So this is the big one. That means reports from officers. So chair through treasurer, area coordinators, and then any committee reports that are done. So that's going to be a little bit longer one. Expect that one to go to about 10. That's when we will select the straggling delegates that we have to fill these spots. Once that list is sent out to the LNC Credentials Committee, the list will also go on the website. So, I mean, for us, it's not really that big of a deal because everyone that was at convention that put their name in already knows that they're going and did whatever. There have been people that have dropped off, and that's why I'm just double checking to see how many spots we have and just making it easier for them moving forward, because I know how much of a pain in the butt it is for them. So just a reminder that the next one will be a long one, probably end around 10-ish, give or take. So just be aware of that. Anything on the next executive committee meeting? Oh, and then we'll vote on an in-person. I'd like to vote on an in-person meeting place and hopefully have a convention committee chair by that time. I do not want it to default to me again. It's too much. I don't like putting parties on. I don't like people. So next item, new business. Any new business from anybody? You guys don't have any business going on? Really? Nobody? Just a lot of shrugging shoulders. I like that. It's funny.
I got something.
There we go. Mr. Cardin.
So we completed a preliminary bill for Defend the Guard to submit to Tom Lackey. He is my assemblyman. He is interested in sponsoring the bill. I will be making that appointment with him on Thursday at my city council meeting. And then I would like you to help me organize getting as many people on that Zoom call as possible.
Wait, so you want him on a Zoom call?
So I'm gonna have the appointment with the assemblyman is gonna be on a Zoom call. So I'd like to flood the Zoom call with enough people to say that we have every county covered.
Oh, I see. Yeah. When is that? Is that already scheduled, or do you know whenabouts that will be?
It'll probably be in the next couple weeks. I'll be speaking to his aide on Thursday at my city council meeting. So.
Okay, so let's as soon as you have the dates for that, if you want to email the XCOM business or the private list, or you can put it on the public list if you want, then I can send the mass email through Neon and we can try to start narrowing down at least one representative per county so that we can do it that way.
Perfect. And then I also I think I have a lead on a Democrat co-sponsor for the bill. So that'll hopefully be the next week.
Oh, speaking of which, I also have okay, we're about to adjourn here. Just XCOM members in the parliamentarian. I have tales of my my exploits in Sacramento last week, which are fun. So, okay, cool. Yeah, send me the information for that. We can definitely get that underway and do something. I'd like to start focusing on more local stuff like that.
Hey, Kelly. Do you have an idea of, assuming that they draft a bill and it goes and what have you, do you have an idea of when it would get introduced? Because if we can do a Defend the Guard type fundraiser and have that be the fundraiser that we attach to the in-person XCOM meeting, may not be the worst idea in the world to kill two birds with one stone. Is that even theoretically possible?
Yeah. So I don't really know how the timeline on that works. I'm not too intimately familiar. Somebody else might be better stated on timelines of bills. But theoretically, they want to move forward fast. So him and Shannon Grove are both like hyper pro combat veteran focused. And then I've got vets who are interested too. So I might have really good support for it, especially with the inroads that were made this year with the Forward Party and all the other all the other small parties. So I'm very hopeful that we can see something on it in the next legislative session.
Very cool.
Interesting.
And that's where legislative committee will come into play. Mr. Cardin, you can also throw your hat in the ring at some point for that if you want. Just throwing that out there.
I mean, I'm brown too.
I'm just saying, I'm just throwing stuff out there. All right. Action items. I think we had like 2, right? What did we have? Does the secretary have action items for us? I think I put some at the beginning. I don't remember what they were. What was it? Do you remember? I don't remember what were the action items that we had?
I'll look at the previous minutes, Mr. Chair, just a second. Here we go.
I think we did them all, but I could be wrong. And then the action items are for the next time, but I don't recall. I should have looked at the minutes beforehand. That's on me.
We had, let's see. Yeah, it looks like we didn't have new business from the March 28th meeting, or action items rather.
Okay, that's fine. Oh, look, my theft return was accepted by the IRS. Oh, joy or rapture unforeseen. Yeah, happy government sucks day, everybody. Mr. Strachan.
Do you have a single word to describe taxation?
Is it an appropriate word? It's not.
Would violate decorum.
Would it violate decorum egregiously? It's fine. It's not violating decorum if it's against the state. Those are people I don't like, or terrible people as a whole. I have a lot of rules around this. The parliamentarian doesn't agree, but it is what it is. So, all right. Last item on the agenda. Who wants to do the honors?
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Dean has moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Stump. This is a non-debatable motion. Is there any objection to adjournment? Hearing none, the motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:13. XCOM members, stick around for like 5 minutes. I have a tall tale to tell you. Well, it's not tall, but
do I have to?
Yeah, you don't have to, but you're gonna want to.
Is this about the? Is this about the driver's
Sacramento,
license draft thing?
It's about Sacramento. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead.
You're
and
right.
We will adjourn right now. Give me just a minute. Well, I'm sorry. Let me stop the recording first.